Welcome back to Made to Be Whole. This is Krista Michener. It is autumn here in Ohio. The days are getting shorter, the nights are getting longer, and with that comes seasonal affective disorder for many people. Today we're going to talk a little more about what seasonal affective disorder is and how you can avoid the pitfalls of the season and not be sad. Made to Be Whole is intended for informational purposes only. It is not intended to replace the advice or care of a licensed healthcare professional. Participating in this podcast does not constitute a provider-patient relationship with Krista Michener, AHP Integrative Health, or any of the guests featured on Made to Be Whole. Krista Michener, AHP Integrative Health, and/or any featured guests are not responsible for any losses, damages, or liabilities that may arise from use of information obtained from this podcast or associated materials, including but not limited to reading material, videos, or use of featured products such as supplements or other health-related products or practices. Please consult a healthcare professional for any health-related concerns that you are experiencing. Hi, this is Krista Michener. Welcome to episode 3 of Made to Be Whole. We've headed into autumn weather, shorter days, and so we're going to talk a little bit today about seasonal affective disorder, abbreviated as SAD, S-A-D. The term was actually first described in medical literature just in the 1980s, so fairly recently, but I think that many people resonate with this cycle of depressed mood, decreased energy, poor concentration, everything as the days get shorter and as we head into the fall and winter months. So we're going to talk today a little bit about A, why it happens, and B, what we can do to prevent or reverse it. So I have taken their mnemonic SAD for seasonal affective disorder and turned it into 3 categories of strategies that we can do to offset it. So SAD also stands for sleep and sunshine, activity, and then for the D, diet and nutrition, and whether or not drugs or medications are a useful option. So the first is sleep. Sometimes I hear people complain about being so fatigued and tired and oversleeping in the winter. I think it's something we need to do a little bit of investigation about what this is looking like. Is it truly increased exhaustion? You're sleeping all the time, not functioning, or is your body's natural clock asking for more hours of sleep as the days get shorter? If it's the latter, I think we need to work to honor our body's natural clocks. So I'll give you a personal example. During the spring, summer, I can sleep 7 to 8 hours a night. Sleep's a big deal for my health. But even in the past few weeks, with the days getting shorter, I've noticed that I need about 9 hours. If I get my 9 hours, I'm functional. If I start shaving off of that, I'm grouchier, I have more pain, I have a harder time concentrating. So you could pathologize that and say, oh, well, that's seasonal affective disorder, Krista. Or you could say, we live in a modern world where we've got light available all the time. We are sometimes pushing against nature. So first of all, listen to your body. Do you just need more sleep during the winter, and do you need to adjust your expectations? If so, do it. If it really is an issue of being chronically exhausted despite sleeping, that's another story. Now, some people with depression have the opposite issue with sleep, and that is insomnia. It's not uncommon. In my opinion, it's very important to treat insomnia if it's a persistent issue. There's so many things your body does while you sleep that are critical for health. There are a variety of different options for combating insomnia. First of all, if you are on screens toward bedtime, try to eliminate that artificial light. If you read at night, you're better off reading your paper book or your Kindle White, something like that, where you're not getting the glare. You don't want to be putting light into your eyes that's stimulating neurological activity and interfering with sleep. Obviously, there's other low-hanging fruit like avoiding caffeine later in the day. Alcohol may help some people fall asleep, but it is really not good for quality sleep. And so I recommend avoiding alcohol near bedtime as well. If that's not enough, you're going to start with some natural over-the-counter options. Part of it depends on if your problem is falling asleep or staying asleep. It's two different types of insomnia. Or the third type is the early morning awakening. I wake up at 3 and I'm just up for the rest of the night. I can't go back to sleep. If your problem's falling asleep, that's typically a little easier to take care of. One quick, cheap fix that works well for some people is Benadryl. Everything is a trial and error basis, but that's a safe medication to try. It's available over the counter. Benadryl, if your problem is simply falling asleep, may be an easy option. Melatonin's an obvious option. Melatonin is something our body makes naturally, but I actually have a test I use that checks hormone levels. Some people have naturally very low melatonin levels. Some people have high melatonin levels throughout the day, which means they're going to have a harder time being alert and functioning during the day, but that's a whole other story. Another over-the-counter option would be CBD. There's one company I like, no affiliation. It's called Plus CBD. They have a sleep gummy that works well for some people. There are a lot of combination products. If your problem also involves staying asleep, you could try an extended release melatonin. Again, a lot of combination products that you can look at for that. Sometimes medication is needed. I have suffered from insomnia for, gosh, like 25 years or more. I remember when I first went to see someone about it and he suggested medication, I really resisted. I thought, oh no, I don't want to do this. I've got to do this naturally. Started taking something and it was gold. I realized my life was dramatically better because I was sleeping through the night. So options that work well for some people that you could talk to your provider about would be trazodone and doxepin. They're both old antidepressants that we use mostly at lower doses for their side effects. So for some people, those are great options for helping with sleep. The next S would be sunshine. So sunshine does a couple of things to us. And when we are having these short days here in Ohio, sometimes it's dark at 6 at night. That might be after you get out of work. So you may not see natural sunlight during the day, and you're missing some key benefits. Now, one thing that does help and have good evidence for seasonal affective disorder for some people is a full spectrum light. You can get these on Amazon in the $40 price range. They used to be much more expensive, but they're not. For a lot of people, 10 minutes a day is enough. Actually, if you have bipolar disorder, too much full spectrum light can trigger mania. So there's a balance. But full spectrum light is a really good, non-invasive, safe option, trying to feed your eyes and your brain some of the benefits of light that you're missing from being out in the sun. Another super important thing the sun does for us is give us vitamin D. Vitamin D, when it's low, is implicated in depression, fatigue. It affects your immune system, all sorts of things. So, and we do a lot to not help ourselves even when we are outside, like wearing sunglasses all the time is great for some things, but you're not getting vitamin D that way. Your skin isn't as exposed. You're not getting vitamin D. So optimizing vitamin D, and in my opinion, not waiting until the winter to do it is important. I have some patients who'll say, well, I don't take any in the summer because I'm outside a lot, but I check their levels and they're really not great. They may be technically normal, but they're not optimal, and they're definitely not enough to suffer the blow that's going to come pretty quickly with the fall and winter months. So optimizing your vitamin D level is important. Now, vitamin D is a fat-soluble vitamin, which means that technically you could get vitamin D toxicity. That's pretty hard. The only case I know of personally was one a colleague had who he had given the patient, there's a 50,000 unit once a week vitamin D capsule that sometimes will be prescribed, and the patient was taking the 50,000 units daily. So that's massive. That's a big, big, big problem. For most people, in my experience, 2,000 units or less is not enough. The majority of people will benefit from being at least 5,000 units, or IUs is how it's dosed. So if you're going and you're searching, at your drugstore, online, wherever, vitamin D, you may find two numbers. One would be the IU dose, the other would be the milligram dose. And so the milligrams are converted into IUs, which are these international units. So if you look, most of them will give you both numbers if you look closely. So like 125, and I misspoke, it's not milligrams, it's micrograms, MCG. Micrograms, smaller than milligrams. So for vitamin D, and I do recommend D3, 125 micrograms is equivalent to 5,000 IU. So each 25 micrograms is 1,000 IUs, or international units. Now with vitamin D, it's also important that you're taking it with the proper cofactors that will help absorption. So there are a couple that can be big players in that. One of them is vitamin K. Vitamin K, very important with vitamin D. Vitamin K helps deabsorb. It's air traffic control to make sure that your calcium gets deposited in your bones and your cartilage and not your cardiovascular system, causing calcification in the arteries. Some people should not take vitamin K unless instructed by a healthcare professional, and that would be people who are on specifically a blood thinner named Coumadin or warfarin, because vitamin K is an antagonist to that, so it's working against it. But for the vast majority of people, you're going to be very safe taking your 5,000 IUs of vitamin D plus 100 mics of vitamin K2 preferably. Other things that can help vitamin D absorption would be magnesium. That upregulates vitamin D absorption, as does sulforaphane, which is a broccoli seed extract. So optimize your vitamin D to get some of the things you're missing from that time in the sun. Do your best to keep your levels optimal through the spring and summer, and don't skimp in the fall and winter. Don't skimp in the fall and winter. Hopefully you'll have a healthcare provider that you can talk to about checking your levels so you get a baseline, because there are people who they absolutely have to take this extra stuff because they're taking vitamin D and they're even taking high amounts and their levels just say really, really abysmal. So talk to your healthcare provider, see if they won't order a baseline vitamin D so you can make some safe decisions about dose, and consult with them if you're on any meds, or if you have any like coagulation illnesses that vitamin K would be a problem for. But get on it. Don't wait until the depression hits hard. Number 2, the letter A is for activity. So our activity level for most of us, and unless you're just super, super disciplined, just naturally declines as the days get shorter, especially if you're someone who likes to walk outside, which is my preferred form of exercise. If you come home at 6 and it's already dark and you make dinner and you eat and it's dark and it's cold, it's a lot harder to go outside and hit the pavement. You have fewer people that usually want to do that with. It's harder to get the social piece of it. Sometimes there are weather issues that make it an unsafe decision if you live where there's a lot of snow and ice and your sidewalks or roads aren't cleared. So I talk to people all the time about having a plan for the fall and winter months. I'll talk to people in the spring or the summer and they'll say, no, I'm going to start walking. We walk at night after dinner. But the big question is, what's your plan for when the days get shorter? That decreased activity level contributes to worse mental health, and as well as, physical health and other things. So you need to have a plan. There is no such thing as a perfect workout or something that everyone needs to do. You just find out what works for you. If it's walking on a treadmill and rewarding yourself by only watching a show you love while you're on the treadmill, giving yourself a little structure, that's great. If it's an exercise bike, if it's a dance video, if it's going to a gym, if it's having a buddy, you just need to figure out a plan and commit to it, because by and large, most people don't pop out of bed in the cold winter months and they're just ready to go jog outside or feel intrinsically motivated to exercise if there's someone who's prone to this seasonal affective profile. So activity, activity, activity. The ideal number, I've mentioned it before, I'll mention it again. There's been a lot of research about the magic number of 150 minutes a week for aerobic activity and its vast health benefits. So that can be walking, jogging, biking, swimming, dancing, anything like that. At 150 minutes a week, we see decreased depression, we see improvements in blood pressure, we see decreased diabetes, lots of benefits. It can be divided up. It doesn't have to be, well, you need to exercise at least every couple of days. It shouldn't just be one super Saturday, but it can be, like we said, 15 minutes in the morning, 15 minutes in the evening, 5 days a week. Maybe you do part of it over your lunch, part of it at night. You figure out your pattern and you do that goal. And what I love about numbers like the 150 minutes, I like simple math and I like when it's achievable. That's something that, with few exceptions, if you set your mind to, everyone can achieve that. What I don't like is when people set goals such as, hey, my goal is to lose 10 pounds by December 30th. You don't have total control over that. You don't have total control because you've got genetics, you've got so many different things going on, but something like exercising 150 minutes a week, you can be successful. So go ahead, set yourself up for success and shoot for those 150 minutes a week. The second part of activity would be social activity. I think that because the days are shorter and people withdraw and spend more time inside, we're more likely to socially withdraw, and that's not good for mental health. We still need to have connection, relationships, things to look forward to. I was actually just talking to my 16-year-old this week, and he was talking about how hard it is because he feels like he invites people to do things, but nobody invites him to do things. And I was reflecting on it. I think part of it, we live in this culture where there's so much communication via text and these quick conversations that we don't really take the time to connect. When I was a kid and you had the phone on the wall with the 20-foot cord that stretched across the house so my mom could be on the phone talking to her friends while she was cleaning, or we would take it and we would go down the basement and shut the basement door for privacy. But talking to people on the phone was something you looked forward to. It was another way to connect. And now there's so much texting that we don't call to see if people want to do things. We don't call to check in. We have less contact, less communication that way. And then I think people do spend less time together. So I was proud mom. He took that to heart. He said, what the heck? I am going to call one of my friends and see if they will if they'll have time to chat. And he was happy to tell me that he talked to them for 22 minutes and he had a good conversation. So he told me this morning someone else that he was going to talk to. So with activity, make time for movement, make time for connection, and find things that you can still look forward to. Like it or not, the fall and winter is going to accompany 50% of the rest of your life. So instead of seeing it as the enemy and something to be endured. Find things that you can do to nurture relationships and nurture health, despite what some people consider less than idyllic outdoor conditions, even though I have some friends who live for it, and so they're in good shape. Third is D, which would be diet and nutrition and drug or medication therapy. So with diet, I have a kind of, I don't know, I take a very individualized approach with diet. I don't think there is a perfect diet for everyone. I don't think that nobody should eat gluten, dairy, or sugar, but I do think that what we put in our body makes a big difference in how we feel, and that it makes sense to honestly assess what you're eating, do some experimenting to see what will help you feel better. I think I've mentioned before, I do much better on a gluten-free diet. I have fewer headaches, I have fewer GI problems, I have less fatigue. It makes a difference. I can have dairy, but I can't have a lot of it. I can have my treats every once in a while, but obviously I don't feel well, and I think anyone who's honest would say they don't feel well if that is a primary part of their diet instead of just kind of the cherry on top of the day. Another thing that merits mention when we're talking about seasonal changes is to adjust what you eat based on the seasons and what things are in season. I personally feel that salads in December are an abomination. Like, I was not meant to eat grass in the middle of the winter, but I love salads in the spring and summer. But it's already here in September gotten to the point that I've had a few side salads in the last few weeks, but it just doesn't feel as good to my body. But I find myself craving more root vegetables and things that are in season now. So pay attention to what is in season where you live and make adjustments in diet based on that. It is easy when it's cold and yucky outside to crave warm things, to crave comfort foods, to crave carbs for energy. So when it comes to wanting something warm, soup is fantastic. Making soup, if you're not someone who's a cook, making homemade soup is actually not that difficult. We've got the internet. Do some searches. There are a lot of basic recipes out there that you could make and have soup to feast on for a week, to take for your lunches or have at night with supper. Herbal tea is something I go to a lot in the fall and winter to keep me warm. Comfort food, create traditions and food habits of things that feel good to your body and are comforting, and try to avoid the heavy carbs. You know, it's so easy just to do the baked goods and the treats, especially once Thanksgiving and Christmas start. And I'm not saying they can't be part of your life. I personally enjoy them, but it's got to be in balance. You've got to fill up on the good things first, and then maybe you have a piece of pumpkin pie, but you're not eating it multiple times a day. You're not eating these things that really were meant to be treats too much, because out of balance, they're just going to make you feel yucky. Carbs, I feel better when I eat carbs. I've tried a lower carb diet, like more protein, vegetables, and if I don't have carbs with every meal, I just don't feel as good. I feel tired. I feel yucky. I have patients who tell me they feel great eating just meat and vegetables. So again, do some investigation, listen to your body, focus on whole, nutritious foods, and make the treats treats. Portion size, frequency, all of that. Most people can make those things part of their life if your foundation is good. Finally, last but not least, drugs or medication. I like the word medication better, but it didn't start with a D. That's why we chose drugs. I remember several years ago driving, I had two of my little kids in the back, and I said something about going to the drugstore, and they said, "Mom, you're not supposed to use drugs." So it's a pharmacy here in 2024. It's not a drugstore anymore. But what role can or should medication play in the management of seasonal affective disorder? So there is evidence that SSRIs, which are selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, such as Zoloft, Paxil, Prozac, Celexa, Lexapro, those are their name brands. They have other generic names, can be beneficial for short-term use. They actually are much better used short-term than long-term for reasons we'll get into. And I do have people who say they take an SSRI during the fall winter months and it really helps stave things off for them. Something that you could try with that or in lieu of that, which I would recommend doing first, is look at what the SSRI is trying to do. So, selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor. Basically, it's trying to keep the body from taking that serotonin out of circulation. It's preventing the reuptake of it. So it's keeping more available serotonin for use and then boosting those levels. The only problem with that is if you're doing that long term, your body doesn't get the signal that it needs to make more serotonin and your levels will crash. And we've mentioned this before, but I'm going to dig into it a little more now and show you what's called the methylation cycle. So with methylation, people will talk a lot about the MTHFR gene, which is a part of the methylation cycle. But this beautiful chart, which comes from the website enlyterx.com, it's ENLYTERX.com, and we'll put a note in the charts, but it shows you the whole cycle, how MTHFR, which is down in your left corner there, it's a really, really important enzyme. Some people have a genetic variant where they can't effectively do that part of the cycle on their own. But if you look at this big, beautiful picture that Enlight made, look at all of the other pieces of the methylation cycle. It involves folinic acid. It involves B6, magnesium, BT, B2, B3, CoQ10, so many different nutrients. And it has to do with not only absorbing and using folate, but other things in ways that will help to reduce homocysteine levels, and homocysteine causes inflammation. It can cause oxidative stress. Your body has decreased ability to clear toxins. All of this is important for making SAM. You'll see that in green there, kind of in the mid right. Some people take SAM-E, which is helpful for some people, but again, that's just part of this cycle. All of these things are going together to make melatonin, serotonin, dopamine, norepinephrine. And so there is a supplement that Enlight made. That's why I'm borrowing their chart, and I will give a shout out to them, because all of the little burgundy dots on our chart are the nutrients that are in this Enlight supplement that are part of this methylation cycle. So if we go to the ingredients in Enlight, it has, they call it team methylation here. They have 3 different types of folates because different people absorb different way. They have B vitamins in their bioactive coenzyme form. So you're going to look at this if you're someone who takes vitamins and say, gee, 50 micrograms of B12, that's not enough. But that's because your body doesn't have to take the 1,000 or 2,500 mics that you usually take and break it down into a form that can be used. In this particular supplement, that's all done for you. So all the B vitamins are in their bioactive coenzyme form. It's got the proper amounts of magnesium, zinc, a tiny bit of iron, not enough to replace an iron deficiency if you have that. Omega-3s, CoQ10s, all in balance so that they're supporting all of the different parts of this methylation cycle. And certainly there are other places you can get these nutrients. I am just highlighting them because I think it's a fantastic product that eliminates the need for a lot of other products and has actually published research showing clinically significant effects in the improvement of depression. It's effective for anxiety. It's very safe as a prenatal supplement and preventing neuro, neural tube defects like spina bifida. It's been used with ADHD. It doesn't have side effects. It's fantastic. And I think we should be looking more and more for products like this that get at the root cause. The SSRI can be a good band-aid, and I'm not saying it's something that really helps you. I'm not suggesting that you stop your meds, but I'm saying look at why that helps. It helps because it's boosting serotonin. How can we help your body boost serotonin naturally? So Enlyte, which is ENLYTE, has a different name, 2 labels for the exact same product. The other one's Embrace, ENBRACE, just different labeling for different marketing insurance things. The thing that's super cool about this supplement, it's prescription, which means that sometimes insurance covers it. If you go to folatehealth.com, FOLATE health.com, you can order it. If you have a healthcare provider who's willing to order it for you through their website, they will do the work of trying to see if it can go through your insurance and get it paid for that way. But it is a great option for looking at this entire methylation cycle, working at preventing depression, anxiety, fatigue, and all the other things that can go with not just the seasons, but in general. It's safe for children, safe for any age. I have not been able to find any group of people that it would be unsafe to try these things in these forms. And because mental health problems are such a big deal, I can't think of many people who wouldn't benefit from it, not just from a treatment perspective, but from a prevention perspective and looking at all of the things that these neurotransmitters do for our body other than just supporting mood. So for drugs, yes, prescription drugs are an option, but look at what the drugs are doing and see if there isn't something else you can do to support that. The one place I am all for medications if other things fail is with the sleep. So again, talk to your provider. There are a lot of other things you can try, but from someone who was plagued by anxiety for a very, very long time, anxiety, but also insomnia is what I was trying to say. They tend to go together. Treatment for insomnia has been life-changing for me, and I really encourage you to give your body a chance to see what it feels like on a full night's sleep. And if the first thing or the first 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 things you try don't help, don't give up. Something else might. I have a patient who I spoke with again yesterday who had struggled with sleep forever. We started her with the CBD gummies. She just takes 1/4 of a gummy every night, and it's been game-changing for her. It's been a tremendous difference. So don't give up. Sleep is not something that you should do without. It's not something you just need to suffer through. Not sleeping is not natural. So take whatever steps you can to optimize your sleep, to get light from full spectrum light, time outside, optimize vitamin D, move, connect with people, do what you can to improve your diet, and look at the root causes of depression and associated conditions. Do what you can nutritionally to support healing, and as always, have hope because you were made to be whole. Thank you for spending time with me today. If you like what you hear, please subscribe to be notified when new episodes release. And remember, you were made to be whole.